Spring is here. The tulips are blooming. It's time to celebrate Tulip Time.
Welcome to our Tulip Time special. I'm Meredith Terhar.
And I'm Jay Plyburn. You can catch us every weekday morning on 13 on your side. But right now, we want to talk about a very special West Michigan festival. Tulip Time in Holland, now in its 92nd year. Meredith, you're a Tulip Time veteran.
Jay, it's true. I am. I was a Dutch dancer at Zeeland High School, loved every minute of it. But my history with Tulip Time started much earlier. Back in 1981, this is a picture of me at just 5 months old during my first Tulip Time.
Aww.
My mom's holding me there. I'm wearing my little Dutch hat. This was taken at Windmill Island. You can actually see the de Zwaan in the background. And now we absolutely love sharing this tradition with our family. And this is Marin in her Dutch dance costume when she was just 6 months old. And we've got another photo of her a little bit more recently at Centennial Park. And yeah, it's such a joy to share this tradition.
Such a cutie, such a great picture. You know, Meredith, I actually have a unique tie to that area as well, and one of those outfits. Check this out. This is some pictures of my mom at just 5 years old in Holland wearing the official gear, looking like a proud little Dutch girl. This was back in 1965. She, along with my grandparents and my aunt, visited the iconic windmill just a few months after it opened to tourists after being brought to America from the Netherlands in 1964. We also unearthed the picture of my mom kicking it with the Dutch dancers, pun intended, you know, because they do some kicking. Needless to say, my mom was very excited when I landed a job in this area, and she is returning to Holland this week for the first time in more than 50 years. Pretty wild.
Jay, I love seeing those photos. And one of the things that strikes me about this, those costumes have remained so consistent through the decades. Just incredible to see, and how amazing to see your mom in that setting decades ago.
And she's thrilled to be coming back to see the Dutch dancers and everything all again. Well, with Tulip Time being a May event, this is really the first festival with in-person offerings that we've had locally since the start of the pandemic, and safety remains a top priority.
Yeah, it certainly does. We spoke with Executive Director Gwen Auwerda about the precautions being taken, and you'll see Gwen, she's all decked out in her Dutch costume.
We're asking people to still maintain your 6 feet of social distance from your party to another. Wear your masks inside in any event outside. Our restaurants are still at 50% capacity, but they have outdoor seating. So I think you're gonna have a great time while you're here to be able to still do things that you wanna do. It's just gonna be on a smaller scale than what we're accustomed to.
And while there will not be large scheduled group demonstrations of dancing in the streets, you can still see the exhibit of the authentic Dutch costumes and their history.
Yeah, Tulip Time Dutch dancers wear costumes that represent 8 of the 12 provinces in the Netherlands. And the exhibit features these intricately designed, beautifully handmade costumes, as well as other Dutch artifacts. Now, the exhibit runs from May 1st through May 8th daily from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Tickets are $8 a person, and timed tickets are required, of course, to keep crowds to a minimum. We have more information at 13onyourside.com/tuliptime.
Now let's take a look at everything that goes into making these incredible costumes.
I'm the costume director for Holland High School. I love to dig through books. I've gone through the library, through the Holland Museum looking for patterns. I actually found one. It's called the Hindle Open, and I absolutely fell in love with this. And I thought, how in the world could we ever find something like this out on the streets in Holland, Michigan for our festival? And it really turned into a passion because the researching side of it is so much fun. Just trying to figure out how do we get it from a picture to the costumes. You have to start kind of figuring out what are the different pieces. How many pieces do you want to try to incorporate? Once we have determined as costume directors what it is that we want this costume to look like, what the pieces are, how we put this thing together, then we go and we look at how do we make these patterns. These aren't patterns that you can just go out and buy. We literally have to make every pattern. It's a lot of trial and error, a lot of cut up bed sheets. We want to make sure that we're keeping these costumes, while we're keeping them authentic, we're keeping them as simple as we possibly can. And so after we have all of that research, then I made prototypes. We want to see a sense of uniformity in our costumes. We want them to represent a certain era, and we want them to maintain that authenticity. It's a very time-consuming process. From the beginning, from the very first initiative of looking at that little picture and saying, wow, I would really love to make that costume, to seeing it on the street with the Hindle open, it took a little over 2 years of research and playing around with the pattern pieces and making the prototypes and just trying to figure all of that out. Some costumes it takes longer. The costumes that we really work on the patterning for are the costumes that are used by our dancers. I would say there's probably maybe 150 costumes that were made last year. Every costume is custom made to that dancer and to that dancer's specific needs. There is nothing like walking out on the street and seeing someone that you've made a costume for. And they're so proud of how they look and how it wears and how they can dance in it. There is no other feeling like that. It's amazing.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah, I love to hear. It makes me tear up a little bit, Jay, because I'm really grateful to have been able to be a part of this as a high schooler years ago. Sure. But to hear the pride that she takes in each and every costume that she gets to be a part of, and the research it took to actually bring some of these costumes to the streets of Holland. So cool to learn about.
Some bed sheets in the mix there too. That was really interesting.
Yeah, funny to hear. Well, unfortunately this year, you're not gonna be able to see the dancers in action, of course, because of COVID restrictions, but we can take a look back to a story that I did on alumni dancers at the last Tulip Time in 2019. Hey, you guys, in addition to the beautiful tulips, the Dutch dancers are my favorite part of Tulip Time. And this is an alumni group of Dutch dancers. That means all of these ladies danced in high school, just like I did for Zeeland High back in the day. And they decided to keep the tradition going later in life. And we're so glad that you all did. Thank you. I want to ask this morning, tell me why you dance.
It's a wonderful service to the community. It's fun to be part of a volunteer organization. It's good exercise, and we just enjoy being together and enjoying this part of Tulip Time.
I love it. Okay, you guys, and some of the years that these dancers have been dancing, truly amazing. Tell me, how many years have you been dancing?
61 years.
61 years, on and off. Can you believe that? That is amazing, Annie. Thank you. And how long have you been dancing?
45 years.
45. Incredible. And finally, how many for you?
43 years.
Wonderful. Okay, they're going to give us a treat this morning. They're actually going to perform for us. Okay, ladies, take it away. Jay, don't you just love the sounds that those clomping shoes make?
I want to get in on the action here.
I know,
looks
right?
So fun.
Well, you and Whitney, Jay's wife Whitney, both of you are such talented dancers. I would love to see you guys actually take this up and maybe be a part of this next year.
Sign us up. I can guarantee you she'd be interested in that. I'm definitely interested in that. Well, of course, it wouldn't be Tulip Time without the wooden shoes and the tulips themselves.
That's right, but before we get into those, let's revisit the man who led the parades and was a Tulip Time icon for years. We're going to take a look at the story we did on John Karsten's last Tulip Time as town crier.
This is just my little man cave, so to speak.
If you're not Dutch, you're not much. That's a funny phrase.
I'm proud of this.
It's also an attitude.
I can't hide it, and then again, I'm proud of it.
John Karsten is Dutch.
I was born in Overijssel and ended up in Groningen.
Really?
Driehoeken heeft mijn hoed.
Really?
En had hij geen driehoeken, dan was het niet mijn hoed.
Dutch.
That means my hat has 3 corners, and it has 3 corners. If it doesn't have 3 corners, then it is not my hat.
If you say so, John.
Yes.
In 1957, he moved from Holland
In the Netherlands.
to Holland?
I came here to marry my girlfriend.
It didn't take long for him to evolve.
Got the hat, got the coat, got the pants, and the gong, boing, boing.
Into one of the community's most unique.
We have really appreciated John Karsten.
and rather loud character.
Hear ye! Hear ye! Gather around! Gather around! Gather around! I have an announcement of great importance.
He became the town crier.
Town crier, what is that?
You mean you don't know what town criers are? Let me tell you what town criers are.
Today, you get the news on your iPhone.
In the Middle Ages, and before that, the average Joe Blow couldn't read or write.
There used to be a town square where everybody came, and then there would be a town crier who would tell you the daily news.
Since 1979, John has been
The mayor says the streets are dirty, and therefore they must be scrubbed.
crying
He does have the pipes.
in downtown Holland.
The streets are dirty, and
Whenever we need some kind of ceremonial chutzpah to open something, it's John Karsten.
Hear ye! Hear ye! Hear ye! The mayor says the streets are dirty. Spread the word.
After 4 decades of doing it,
Spread the word.
he's decided this year
Quit while you're ahead.
will be his last,
My wife said, "Are you sure?" Yeah, I'm sure.
leaving some big shoes
It's going to be hard to match what John's been doing.
and an even bigger voice
Family affair, and we all
to fill.
I'm sure he'll have a few tips for whoever takes his place.
spread the word.
But no replacement is needed yet.
It's been fun.
Tulip Time is here.
I have an announcement of great importance.
That means the mayor will require this crier
He's an icon.
to pronounce to the public
Don't shoot the messenger.
one final time.
Spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word. May God bless you all. May God bless America.
Really so special to hear from John again. Of course, he retired a few years ago, and just what a character, such
What
an
a character.
icon.
Yeah.
And I know I feel like such a character in these wooden shoes,
As
Jay.
do I. These are so fancy. Not the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn, but not the most uncomfortable shoes either.
No, this is true. And what do we do to make our wooden shoes comfortable? We wear
Lots and lots of socks. I've got some that I wore recently when I was taught some of the Dutch dancing, and this is just the pairs that I wore. I don't even think that's all of them. About half a dozen pairs on average, right? To
Yeah.
make the shoes feel good. Yeah. With the traditional black on the outside, I was told.
Yes, you got to keep it uniform when you're out there Dutch dancing on the streets of Holland for sure. Well, yeah, these klompen shoes, such an important part of this tradition of Tulip Time.
Yeah.
And
But you gotta have the socks.
you have to have the socks. That's what makes them comfortable. I will say, I think they've got pretty decent arch support. How about you?
Not bad, not bad. And they're certainly sturdy. You could wear
They
them for a while.
are, for sure.
All right, it's time now for a piece that our station put together for Facebook back in 2018 on the tradition of making the wooden shoes and the man behind the masterpieces.
We all know how important wooden shoes are to Tulip Time. Well, the Dutch word for wooden shoes, klompen. This is Rick Klompmaker. Yes, you heard that correct. Your last name is actually Klompmaker. Rick, that's incredible. This has been in your family for quite some time.
Yes, it has, Meredith.
I love it. Now, Rick is actually going to show us some steps in how you actually make wooden shoes. Rick, what do we start with right here?
We start with a rough block of wood cut from a log, and I use the hatchet to get the rough shape, cut off a lot of the extra wood, if you want to say it that way.
Absolutely. What type of wood is this, Rick?
This is aspen, which is a type of poplar tree.
Great. Okay, so once you've got kind of the general shape, talk to us about this step right here.
So after we rough it out with a hatchet, I will use the knife here to do the outside of the shoe.
Great.
Take nice long shavings and get the shape that's familiar to everyone as a wooden shoe.
And Rick, how long does something like this actually take by hand?
The shoe this size takes about 25 minutes.
Okay. So when shoes are mass produced, they're going to be using machinery, but you do it the old-fashioned way.
This is the old-fashioned traditional way, that's right.
And your first Tulip Time was what year, Rick?
Oh, you're asking questions. My first Tulip Time was 1986. That goes back a few years.
Yeah, it certainly does. We're so grateful, Rick, for you being willing to join us this morning and sharing some of your talents. We appreciate it.
I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And of course, carving these wooden shoes, a labor of love. Let's take another look at what goes into this process. last but not least, we've got the stars of the festival, the tulips.
Yay, tulips. They are fairly easy to grow, but let's look at what it takes to keep Holland looking colorful this time of year with a piece we did just a few years ago.
The city plants about 450,000 new bulbs every year. This park that we're standing in here is a window on the waterfront. It is planted by volunteers. People take ownership of it. They'll take their grandkids or whatever and say, oh, this is what we planted. And so it's kind of fun that way. Some of them have contests to see how fast they can plant a bed. In the fall, when we plant these tulips, we put these fencing up almost right away because the deer will come in, they'll dig up the tulips and eat the bulbs. And in the wintertime, if we don't protect them, the shoots start coming up and they like to nip off those little shoots, and that ruins the plant. A number of years ago, we didn't realize that deer came in here, and they came in and they ate about 50,000 tulips. We keep them up until the buds get above the top of the tulips, and then for some reason the deer don't like to eat them anymore. We have county inmates. They come out and they're the ones that put up the fencing and get it all ready to go. Tear down takes about a day and a half. Putting it up takes almost, not quite a week, but just about a week, at least 4 days to get it all up.
Well, that's all the time we have for now. We encourage you to head to Holland to enjoy the tulips and celebrate that spring is here.
And of course, you can always stay up to date with all things Tulip Time, including the weather, weekday mornings from 4:30 to 7 with 13 on your side mornings.